Teachers for weeks now, and many say this is going to be a school year unlike any other. In our show tonight, we'll be looking at how schools are combating violence, to inflation and its impacts on the supplies we buy for our kids.
And there's another issue plaguing the nation. How are schools keeping kids up to date with learning while also dealing with a shortage of educators? And where does artificial intelligence fit inside our classrooms? Well, with the new school year, there's new worry. Many parents wonder how schools are keeping their kids safe, and it's something school officials are also discussing.
And one of their big concerns is Michigan's new state budget and the money it does and does not allocate to school safety and to mental health funding. News Channel 3's Julie Williams has more on how two local schools say they're keeping their students safe this year.
I thought initially someone was pulling my leg. I thought that was a joke. That can't be possible.
That's Comstock School Superintendent Dr. Tanis talking about Michigan's state education budget. Governor Whitmer signed it in July. It's $23.4 billion. Dr. Tanis says he's glad it was signed before the school year started, but he's worried about the cuts to a fund that's called 31AA. It's designed for school safety and mental health funding.
You can say, go help kids, but if you don't have the resources, you don't have the personnel, that's more of a pipe dream or a hope or aspiration rather than maybe a reality.
Republican State Representative Matt Hall says he's not happy about the cuts, and he thinks they came down to a political issue.
School safety should not be a political issue. Mental health funding in our schools and school counselor dedicated funding should not be a political issue.
Democratic State Representative Julie Rogers says even with the cuts to 31AA, schools will be able to decide how they spend the money, and she says some schools will get per pupil increases.
That's the other piece I like, is that some districts may have different needs, and it gives them that flexibility. Really lets the school districts and their school boards and superintendents kind of be in the driver's seat and decide how best to spend that money.
Comstock Public Schools and Brandywine Community Schools in Niles say they're worried about what the new education budget could mean for them in the future, but they're not as worried about the impacts this year.
The loss of the mental health funding was a really big blow to schools. We definitely have to watch what we're spending much more carefully without the additional funding.
Walker says some of their teachers will look for students who might be at risk. Some of those indicators are if they're part of free and reduced meal programs or if they have a parent who's in jail or prison. He says identifying a student as at risk can qualify them for money from 31A. That's a fund that gives schools more money and support for their at-risk students.
Really, to educate kids, we need to make sure that they are in the right space mentally, that they have that safe and secure environment. It's a big piece of everything that we do here.
This year, Comstock schools have several new safety plans. They'll keep their school resource officer. They're putting exterior door sensors on schools across the district, and they also have advanced cameras at every entrance, hallway, and classroom.
We're the most covered district in terms of security cameras in the county.
Dr. Tanis says they're paying for their upgrades with grant and bond money. He says they also have plans to use mobile metal detectors at sporting events, and they have a grant for licenses for 8 cameras that can detect if someone has a weapon.
The world has changed, I guess, a little bit, or it seems like it has. Maybe it hasn't, and people just are more aware of these issues now. But you could argue definitely there's been an increase in student shootings or shootings at schools where schools were targeted by non-students.
Brandywine schools also say they're updating some of their camera systems, and they're also making sure all of their staff know their safety protocols. Comstock and Brandywine schools both say, though, the new state budget could make it harder to decide how to designate funding in the future.
Well, everything from pens and notebooks to backpacks, even a new haircut.
Back to school is almost a season in and of itself. And with everything that we buy being more expensive than it was just a few years ago, it does take a village to make sure our kids are ready to go back to school. There were several school supply giveaway events in West Michigan to make sure kids were geared up for their first day. New Life Church in Portage had a back to school bash. And if there was anything school related, well, they had it. School supplies, backpack giveaways, family photos, even haircuts. Organizers say the event is literally by parents and for parents.
And we're parents and we look at that list and it's like, how are we going to budget this in for this month? You know, how are we going to make sure that our kids have everything they need? And we want to provide that for our kids and for the teachers, but it's stressful, you know, and so if we can just take that weight off of parents' shoulders, that's the hope.
And the Salvation Army also did its part in making sure local teachers are ready for the first day of school. This was its first ever holding a teacher tailgate event. Teachers who signed up were given supplies for their classrooms. Organizers tell us it was meant to show teacher appreciation for their dedication and hard work and to help cut the cost for teachers who often spend their own money on classroom supplies.
Today, we're going to be handing them and giving them a tote full of supplies for their classroom, because we all know teachers dip into their own pockets to supply supplies and things for their classroom. And we want to help alleviate some of that pressure for them.
And what's school prep without a little fun involved? The Salvation Army brought in games, prizes, and food too.
And back to school shopping is a massive economy booster. The National Retail Federation says families will spend roughly $39 billion ahead of the school year. For perspective, that's more than 4 times what was spent last year on Black Friday. And this year could near a record because of inflation. Parents with a child in kindergarten through 12th grade are expected to spend nearly $875. Experts say college students will spend more than $1,300. And there's one key variable that spiked that spending in recent years.
Electronics are a much bigger portion of back to school and college spending than they used to be. Kids these days, whether they're in elementary school, middle school, or high school, are usually attending class equipped with some sort of electronic device to aid in their learning.
And you might see yourself in some of these numbers. A survey by Finance Buzz asked 1,000 parents how they plan to stay on budget. More than half say they're going generic or buying less expensive supplies. Almost a third say they're cutting back on new clothing. 38% say they did more sales shopping than usual. And about 1 in 5 parents say that they'll use last year's school supplies again.
And we wanted to hear from you. It's our question of the day. We asked, how much did you spend on school supplies this year? And we had options ranging from less than $150 to more than $600. Well, more than half of people answered less than $150. But about 1 in every 4 who responded said between $150 and $250. 8% of people said $250 to $400, 9% between $400 and $600, and about 7% say they spent more than $600 on back to school shopping. Well, we also had a number of people comment on our Facebook page. They say their school supply list was surprisingly small this year, but those items were expensive. You can take part in this conversation and answer the survey on our website right now. All you have to do is head to WWMT.com.
A lot of people do their shopping online, of course, now, and that includes the shopping we do ahead of back to school. Although experts say scammers are clued into this trend as well. The Better Business Bureau says scammers are getting smarter, and it's easier to fall for scams that appear to be good deals online. They say the most common scam, one that starts on social media. It could be an advertisement promising the best deals on a device. Experts say you normally have to give a credit card information in before you pay, so it sometimes doesn't seem suspicious when the fake website asks you to do the same.
Scammers are very good at manipulating the wording that they use, the images that they use to convince you that they're legitimate. There are a number of different online shopping scams that are out there. Those big buying seasons are when we see increases in these types of scams.
The Better Business Bureau says many scams of these kind go unreported because victims feel ashamed after falling for them. They say reporting your experience can help others be aware of what to look out for.
Well, Michigan, along with the entire country, is now in the midst of a teacher shortage. School districts are trying to add more teachers by training people who are already doing different jobs, but that's only one part of the issue. The other is keeping teachers from leaving the profession. News Channel 3's Kirk Mason explains.
Joshua Schott is choosing to work during summer. He used to get them off, but he traded in a classroom for a cubicle.
What would have changed to get you back in the classroom?
Well, I mean, aside from the money, being able to know that the administration has my back.
Schott leaves Constantine each morning to drive across the state line to work at this RV company in Elkhart, Indiana. He taught special education in both the Constantine and Colwyn school districts. Low pay, too much paperwork, and the stress of bringing the day's problems home with him drove Schott out of the profession.
I can go ahead and leave here saying, hey, if I didn't get it done today, it's going to be there tomorrow.
According to Michigan's Department of Education, enrollment in teacher preparation programs declined by almost 60% from 2011 to 2017. But the state says enrollment has rebounded by more than half.
Right now, that bump is largely based on grow your own enrollment.
Laura Deinhardt is the dean of Western Michigan University's College of Education. This summer, WMU has the largest enrollment at the education school in 5 years, with a larger percentage of those students at the graduate level. State programs are reaching out to adults already in the workforce through the Grow Your Own program to try and add teachers.
The state has done an amazing job of really funding districts across the state to ensure that they have the best opportunity to highlight individuals in the community that want to become teachers.
West Michigan school districts I've spoken to tell me they'd still like to have more applicants, but it's better than it's been in recent years. Here at Portage Public Schools, they've hired 29 teachers so far this summer. They still have 10 open positions, but they do expect to be fully staffed by the time fall school starts.
It's a bigger struggle now finding any teacher compared, I had to say, 10 years ago.
Kalamazoo Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Darren Slade told me he expects 99% of their teaching jobs to be filled when classes start. He says math and science teachers are the toughest to find, but says hiring in Kalamazoo is much easier than other districts he's worked in across the country, including St. Louis and Baltimore. And he doesn't think money is the biggest issue.
It's about making people see this as a viable profession, an important profession. It's kind of like being a doctor or a lawyer. I always tell folks, a teacher, you're saving and changing lives as a teacher. It's just not immediate as a doctor.
Grand Design Parts, this is Josh. How can I help you today?
Training more teachers is only part of a solution. Michigan needs to keep people like Joshua Schott in education.
Legislatures, I mean, they need to come and actually sit in a classroom, see what the teachers are dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
The dean of WMU's education school thinks there needs to be a shift in how teachers are trained, with more focus on what future teachers can expect from kids and parents.
I often compare it to parenting, right? We all have these images of what it is to be a parent because we watch movies and we think it's amazing. And then it's really challenging. It's not an easy thing to do. So I think with teaching, it's similar.
Deinhardt says state funding for Grow Your Own works because it helps pay for school. Free tuition's a big motivator. But Deinhardt also says people should look at education as a career. And there are opportunities to get into the administration in school districts across Michigan, which means higher salaries. Kirk Mason, News Channel 3.
The fall semester means the return of school sports as well, and doctors want to make sure that people are trained on what to do in the event of an emergency on the field or on the court. It's part of a partnership between Life EMS, Corewell Health, and the University of Michigan. Organizers held informational sessions in Grand Rapids to help first responders. They went over spinal injuries, heat-related illness, and how to respond if somebody's having a heart attack. Also, pain management and keeping someone comfortable when they do get hurt were key talking points.
Between the athletic training folks, the healthcare systems, and us at Life EMS Ambulance, our mission is to make sure that competition and playing field is as safe as possible for the student athletes, and we're doing everything we can to support that level of safety and care.
According to Stanford Medicine Children's Health, about 30 million kids and teens take part in school sports every year. And every year, there are more than 3.5 million injuries.
Well, class is back in session at Kalamazoo Public Schools this Monday. The district is still celebrating last year's accomplishments under Superintendent Dr. Darren Slade's first year of leadership. Dr. Slade telling us that preliminary data shows improvement in some test scores will actually break district records, but it's just the first step in his long list of goals. In a one-on-one interview, I asked him what his biggest challenges are and what changes parents and students should expect for this school year. So Dr. Slade, the new school year is right around the corner. How are you feeling right now?
I'm very excited about the school year. We had a great school year last year. We're in celebration mode right now. We had major improvement in every single area that we measure student achievement. I'm talking about test scores, graduation rates, attendance, student climate and behavior. So I'm really excited about this year because we had such a great school year last year.
It's definitely a collaboration. Your teachers and staff are so important to the chemistry of the school district. How are you hoping to attract and retain new teachers?
As you know, we had like 60 community meetings last school year where we went out to every single school. We talked to parents, teachers, we offered support. We listened to what folks said and we put things in place based on what our stakeholders said. I think just that alone will attract some of our teachers and keep some of our teachers. Also, again, the fact that we're in a state of improvement, major improvement, I can't say it officially, but I'm pretty sure we're one of the most improved districts in the state of Michigan. So that will help keep our teachers, our students, our families in Kalamazoo.
So these community meetings were meant for you to listen and to hear the challenges that your teachers and staff are facing. What was the outcome? What changes will take place?
The goal was to hear honest feedback. We promoted honest feedback. The biggest takeaway from that is that we're doing a lot of great things, and also there are some areas that we have to improve on that we started immediately to address.
What are those areas?
I think the biggest area we had to kind of improve on is overall just improving student achievement. Also, there were some concerns about just regular student climate, which we're addressing. Also, it was mentioned like just class size and right size and the numbers of students in some of our bigger schools.
You implemented a new cell phone policy last year. You also cracked down on absenteeism. What other policies are you putting in place to improve student achievement and behavior?
The cell phone policy went very well. We're going to still tighten that up this year. I'm not going to lie, we toughened our discipline policy as it relates to fighting, disrespect towards to teachers and other students. That will continue. We will continue to tighten that up. I'm old fashioned. I'm big on respect. I'm big on discipline. Of course, we want to support students with social emotional. We hired more therapists. We have 2 brand new counselors in both of our high schools, 1 in each high school. So we're going to provide that social emotional support. But I do want to be clear, we're going to be very tough with discipline. And again, you see the positive results from that.
What will the strengthening of the student discipline policy entail?
We have increased spaces in other programs for students who need additional support. So if you're a student in high school, and let's say you've been in 3 or 4 fights, you may be removed from that regular setting and have to go to an alternative setting. We're going to do a better job this year of that.
What about the younger kids when it comes to discipline?
So what we're doing is we're creating one classroom in the city where we have 15 spots. So if you're that one student in that building where your behavior is so extreme, it kind of takes away and creates a disruption for the whole building. We created a placement for that student up to 45 days, 60 days, where that student will go receive special services, special emotional support, more of a therapeutic setting to prepare them to go back into the regular setting. That's something new we're doing this year.
So are there any capital improvement projects in the works?
One of our goals is to have one of our football teams make it into the playoffs in the very near future. In order for us to kind of recruit the best athletes, we have to have the best facilities. And most schools now have AstroTurf. I call it AstroTurf, but turf fields. So we're going to have that done in this school year, so we'll be ready for next year.
You mentioned tighter security measures. What will that entail?
We always have to continue to increase our security because of the world we live in.
Any discussion of metal detectors?
That will still be a discussion moving into next year.
And then finally, Dr. Slade, what is your biggest challenge moving forward?
So the biggest challenge for me is just making sure that our students graduate. I will predict it's going to be one of the biggest improvements in the state. That's what I'm going to predict, because that's how I operate. I'm looking forward to sharing our outcomes with the district. And again, I look forward to even bigger things happening this school year.
Well, congratulations on all your improvements, and I wish you all the greatest success for this school year. So thanks for talking to me.
Thank you.
And Dr. Slade also tells us KPS now has a surplus of school bus drivers, and Saturday school will expand this year to include middle school students. He says preliminary results also show that students who participated last year saw an 80% improvement in math and reading comprehension.
Sometimes you have to make back to school a whole day of fun in the summer, and that's exactly what Rise Corps did in Battle Creek. They hosted their 5th annual back to school event Monday, but there's much more than free backpacks and school supplies to find there. There are games, prizes, food, and more, and it all happened at the Y. Organizers say it's about connecting with families while helping them.
They love it. We've had a bunch of families that talked about the need of this and, how they needed help with back to school supplies and things of that nature. Also, again, to give the kids something to do. We're also offering free haircuts, free braids for the kids. And so a lot of the families are definitely enjoying that, being able to get a free haircut or get the kids' hair braided for back to school.
Now, the 5th annual Back to School event was made possible through a series of partnerships, including one with Prim and Proper Children's Spa in Battle Creek.
With the tremendous rise in social media that's among use with children, educators are now keeping a closer eye on the mental health of students. Plainwell Middle School is on its 2nd year of a program that allows students to use an app called Clayful. It allows them to connect anonymously with more than 100 mental health professionals. The superintendent says it's about using something kids are familiar with to get them the help they need. He also says removing social media from their daily lives is not helpful.
The more social media use that we've seen over the years, that accessed through the phone causes a lot of the student conflicts that we see. So if you as a parent or us as educators completely remove cell phones as an option and social media as an option for kids, that can actually have a detrimental effect on their mental health, because that's how kids communicate now.
The superintendent estimates about 80% of conflicts between students begin first with social media, and it's an issue experts say has only gotten worse since the pandemic. Artificial intelligence is evolving every day, and as students head back to school, many districts are wondering how this will impact learning in the classroom.
And News Channel 3's Julie Williams talked to leaders of 2 local school districts about how they plan to use AI to their advantage.
You can find AI almost anywhere these days, even in your child's classroom.
Our philosophy, our approach is AI is here. It's here to stay.
Comstock School Superintendent Dr. Jeffrey Tanis says a lot of students are already using AI, and Parchment School's Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Jeremy Andrick, agrees.
AI is it's like a Wild West frontier. There's so much and we don't know exactly the capacity yet.
Some school districts are getting some guidance from a nonprofit called the Michigan Association for Computer Users in Learning, or MACAL. Those guidelines are designed to help teachers understand and work with the technology.
Artificial intelligence basically means that a machine can do something a human can do. What changed the game was when AI was able to start creating content. It's called generative AI.
Rather than fight it, McGinnity says AI can save teachers time and help with their lesson plans, but she says they have to know how to use it.
I think it's our job and our responsibility to show kids how to use that responsibly and be social responsible as well.
Some teachers and parents say they're concerned about students maybe using AI to cheat. So that's why Parchment School say they're working with MACAL on what their AI guidelines should be.
I'm okay with things being in flux. And so I think with our plan and where we're going with it, it's going to be an amazing thing because everybody has a voice in it.
Andrick says their plan will be fluid for a while, but he says part of it will be teaching students how to know if what they're seeing can be believed or if it's fake AI information.
We don't just teach them social studies and math, we teach them how to be critical thinkers. And so if they're looking at information in front of them and they're not thinking critically about it, then we haven't done our job.
Comstock schools have a similar mindset.
It's a tool for a teacher to have in their toolbox. It is not a new teacher.
Dr. Tanis says they're using a new AI-based program called Amira to help some of their elementary students with their reading comprehension.
Amira provides a ton of data about how the student is doing, what is their fluency rate, how many words per minute. Then the teacher can use that data to target the student for more interventions or to let them know how they're doing.
Both Dr. Tanis and Andrick say they'll work on their guidelines throughout the year with their teachers, staff, and parents. MACAL says they have strategies and suggestions for districts. We have more information from them and how they say parents can help their students this year on our website, WWMT.com.
Well, before you head out the door, it's so important to keep in mind your morning commute to school.
Yeah, police are making sure that drivers obey the rules of the road, and especially when it comes to school buses and keeping our kids safe. Our chief meteorologist, Keith Thompson, is here with a quick refresher. Keith.
Yeah, you might not think that weather has anything to do with that commute, but as a matter of fact, it does. For school bus safety, some important reminders for drivers that are weather related. Remember, a lot of mornings when we have fog, that's going to give you some poor visibility. When it's raining, kids may be in the street, lots of puddles nearby. And so if you're close enough to a school where they may be walking, remember, they may not be thinking about where they're walking. It's up to you to keep an eye out. And even when it's nice and sunny, you can have a strong glare, and of course that will reduce your visibility as well. You know what it all means is when you know that you're in a school zone or you see some kids out and about, whether it be at the bus stop, whether it's walking near the school, always remember it's a good idea to slow down. More on that school bus safety. Remember this, when the light is flashing yellow, that just means that you have to prepare to stop. Obviously, when it's flashing red, that means that you must stop. And by the way, the penalties, the incentive to obey the law, fines between $100 and $500. And it actually goes beyond that. You know, you might even have to provide up to 100 hours of community service at the school for violating this law. So I would certainly recommend doing that. You know, one question that I think a lot of folks have is that, what about when the highway is divided? Do you have to stop if you're oncoming traffic?
Right.
And actually, if there's a median, an island, or a barrier, you don't. But if it's a center turn lane in either a 3-lane or a 5-lane configuration, you do. Important to know, you don't want to find out from the person with the blue light.
You need that physical barrier to separate you.
Exactly.
So.
If you don't have it and the center lane doesn't count, then you have to stop.
You know, I'm thinking about the kids who actually walk to school in the morning when it's so dark outside. They're wearing a black hooded sweatshirt.
Yes.
You got to keep your eye out when you turn into parking lots and all sorts of things.
And that's why I think it's up to all of us as we're driving to know where we are there kids around? And if there are, there's no excuse to not be careful.
They tend to dart, so we pay extra careful attention starting next week.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for our back to school special.
We hope you have a very safe, happy, and wonderful start to the new school year. And be sure to tune in to our regular newscasts at 10 and 11 here on News Channel 3. Good night.